Kia ora, I'm Liz,
Kia ora, I'm Jan.
and this video is around trauma and how that affects people, and that trauma is not measured by what people have lost or what they've come out with. It's actually about being in that event at the time and how that affects people. So yeah, Jan, can you touch on that?
Yeah, okay, so I think that what a lot of people have been doing is telling themselves that maybe their experience has been less horrific than somebody else they know, and therefore they should be okay.
Yeah.
And even people who've lost their houses and their cars, I've heard people saying, yes, but I feel so guilty because actually my neighbour, they lost their house, their cars, their dog and their business. So what right do I have to feel bad? And yet we know they've been through a terrible trauma.
Yeah.
But as you've said, we have actually all been through this trauma. We've all been through it together. We've all been through an event which took lives and took people's possessions and livelihoods and precious things, photograph albums, kids' special toys, all sorts of things have gone. And so I think it's really important that we do understand that the things we feel and the emotions and how we're responding is not about how much we personally have lost. It's about the fact that we've all been through this trauma, and that we need to recognise that we don't just judge that on how big the trauma was, because a trauma response is a trauma response. And for example, somebody might not have been able to get in touch with their loved ones over this time. That's happened to a lot of people. So they're nowhere near the devastation that's been caused. But I know in my own family, my kids are in the one or two, and for like 3 or 4 days they couldn't make cell phone contact. And this has happened to many people, and those people actually have had their own trauma responses.
Absolutely. Because
they're starting to see things that have happened on the TV, and they think, I don't know how my parent, my loved one, my good friend is doing.
Yeah.
There may have been people who seem to have just disappeared, and the people left do not know why they've disappeared.
Yeah.
They may have gone somewhere. Something could have happened to them, and the not knowing is pretty traumatic.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So don't judge your own feelings and reactions about what you might have lost or not lost. And you said something useful before about somebody who'd lost power, but that was a traumatic thing for them.
Absolutely.
About that?
Yes, I think, if we think, I lost power, well, that sucks, I can't boil the kettle, or can't watch my show, favourite show tonight, or I've lost the internet, can't play my game, whatever it might be. But actually that can have massive implications for people. I spoke to someone that uses a CPAP machine at night, which helps them to sleep, but they weren't able to use that machine for 5 or 6 days, and therefore that really affected their sleep, and therefore that affected their depression. And so it is the implications of the wider things. And as you say, it everyone has been through that event, and even people outside of the area, just seeing the devastation that's happened to our beautiful country, affected by the event and the trauma as well, let alone the people that are right here in Hawke's Bay. And you're going to be seeing that devastation every single day.
That's right. You drive in and out. It's like driving through a war zone.
And the grief that comes up with that for the whenua, for the land that has been so beautiful, type thing.
Yeah. So Liz, I also heard a story from a friend of mine, and a friend of theirs had immediately decided, because they had a digger and got a mate who had a digger, and said, we're going up to help. So they put their diggers on trailers and they brought their diggers up, and they worked away, and then they went back again. And my friend said every time he starts talking about what he saw, in Eastdale, he just starts sobbing.
Yeah.
And so this is a man, you know, through the goodness of his heart and with empathy, has come up to help people, and he has clearly been traumatised
Yeah.
by what he's seen,
Yeah.
and what's happened to the whenua and the effect on the people that it's had. And I think that's really important too, because that's been the biggest thing for me. As we're on a little we've been on like a little isthmus, we're surrounded by water, but all our neighbours over the back and up the road, all their houses and all their vehicles and all their possessions are gone. So it was a wonderful thing, because they basically jumped the fences, and we became a combined community.
Yeah.
But for us living here, we feel guilty,
Yeah.
because our houses are okay and we haven't lost stuff, or we might have lost mowers, and that's nothing important.
Yeah.
And yet these people we care about, and that we actually bonded with even more, because they all came and stayed with us, are devastated. And now they've got the whole thing of having to go through all the insurance, and goodness knows when they'll ever be able to go back, or if they'll be able to go back.
Yeah.
And for me, that's been hugely traumatic, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how have you navigated that, if you're okay to go there, in terms of that sort of survivor's guilt is being talked a lot at the moment, that, you know, oh, well, we're lucky type thing. How have you navigated that personally, and what would you suggest?
Yes, so it's really interesting, because what's you know in your head and what you feel in your heart can be two different things.
Yeah.
So I know very well in my head, but it hasn't stopped me feeling it in my heart.
Yeah.
But what I've done is I've talked to a few people up and down the street and around the neighbourhood who are having this, you know, what have we got to complain about? We're the lucky ones.
Yeah.
We haven't lost anything. And some of them have said, so why do I keep crying? I've got no reason to keep crying.
Yeah.
And so what I've said to them is, yes, we are lucky. We feel really blessed because we are relatively unscathed.
Yeah.
But gosh, firstly, we've been impacted by our friends that have lost everything. And secondly, we were in the trauma. We were in the event. We have been affected by Cyclone Gabrielle and the devastation, and now we have to drive in and out of the evidence of that every day, and that's not nothing. And I would say that there will be people who aren't even in this area, who live somewhere else, and who come up and see what's happened, and they're affected. You know, so we're affected in different ways, and it kind of seems like survivor guilt implies that we know that there's been something to survive, but I don't think that it recognises as much, or people don't recognise it as much, as that a part of it is feeling guilty because you've survived and you're okay, but another part is that you were actually in the traumatic event.
So it is that survivor.
Yes.
Does mean that you were there.
Yes.
And experienced it in some which way. And I think, you know, that loss of communication and power for those days, what would it have been, 4 or 5 days, did you say?
It was
longer for some areas.
Yes, it was longer for some areas. I think we might have been about 4 days with no cell phone communication. And then it came and went a bit. But I mean, it was a relief for our families to know that we were alive, because they couldn't even know that.
You know, so 4 days at least of that unknowing, you know, what where people were at, and whether they were at, and where they were and how they were. Absolutely traumatic for a lot of people. So what can people do, you know, if they are struggling with that survivor guilt? Because I feel it's compassion again for the feelings and what's coming up, and you know, it can also mean, you know, do I invite people around for a meal? You know, does it feel like I might be rubbing it in if I invite people over when they've lost everything?
So the first thing, again, as you said, is acknowledging it and being kind to yourself, and knowing that you're not bursting into tears every 5 minutes for no good reason.
Yeah.
You've been through something big, whatever that thing was.
Yeah.
It was big and it has affected you. That many of us do have a lot of empathy and compassion, and so we're really affected by what we see
Yeah.
and what's happened to other people,
Yeah.
and that's really valid. And I'm glad you mentioned that about what do I do with my friends, you know, like here I am with my house intact and they're living in a motor camp
Yeah.
or whatever. My experience from being here is that our neighbours that have lost everything have felt embraced and cared about from us inviting them to things, and we've kept on having street meetings or barbecues that
Awesome.
we invite people to,
Yeah.
and I think that is much better for them than feeling like, okay, we're out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
So I haven't come across anybody who said, well, you know, you can't talk because look what you've got.
Right.
Actually, what people have said is, it's been such a blessing that our community has come together in this way, and we
Yeah.
feel really supported, and we won't forget that.
Yeah.
So I'd say don't be afraid
Yeah.
to invite people for a dinner, or take them a care pack, or ring and check on how they're doing, or, you know, organise a lunch or a dinner out.
Yeah.
Just things that keep on saying, I'm still here and I still care, and you know, you're just conveying to them in that way that you know what they've lost and you care.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that's so powerful, and some of it is that just do it type idea. I was talking to somebody and they said, you know, sometimes I just don't know what I need. You know, I have people asking me, what do I need, how can I help, and I just don't know, and I just wish they'd pick something that they can help with, whether I wish they'd just turn up with their shovels, or bring that care pack or that food, or whatever it might be. And I did speak to someone that said, I just wish people would stop rubbing my back, and you know, like they're there, it's just like stop that. You know, I'm trying to carry on, and I'm trying to move forward with this, and maybe I'm in that place where I'm moving forward, and I'm not ready to grieve yet, or let some of those feelings come up, but that practical support I think can be so powerful when people have seen someone coming down with some of Neela's Thai meals, coming down the driveway and delivering it, or that random care pack, whatever it might be. So powerful. And then, you know, that can help relieve some of those feelings that maybe are coming up for people. But also acknowledging, okay, so what's your key takeaway that you'd love people to take from this?
I'm just going to tell you first what made me laugh when you said about, I wish people would stop patting me on the back, because I'm guilty of it. So I'm not able to do shovel stuff. So I was just kind of wandering up and down the street and talking to people and finding out how they felt and giving out hugs. And I said, and I'd say I'm giving out hugs. So that's what made me laugh when you said that.
But you know, there's absolutely a time and place, and if back rubbing's not right for one person, is absolutely going to be the right thing for someone else. So don't get too hung up on things. People are going to appreciate that you're there and you're thinking of them, and providing that support in whatever which way.
So the takeaway I would say on this is, don't be afraid of being kind and thoughtful to other people that have lost things. They're going to appreciate that you care, and that you keep on thinking of them and spend time with them. So really try to be brave and not avoid it, and you'll actually find when you start doing it, you'll feel better, because you'll be connecting with those people, and that'll be a powerful thing for both them and for you as well.
Awesome. And then that key point around everyone in the area has been affected in some way.
Yes, that's right.
And being kind